And welcome back, everyone. No Zanpakuto video today. It'll be out tomorrow. Just, again, things got ahead of me. But I do have a birthday request from Bobby Reynolds, who asked the question, who would win in a fight? Nick Cage's character, who I believe is just called the janitor from Willy's Wonderland, versus the Beldam from Coraline. Now, there's not much to say on Nick Cage's character because there literally isn't much to say. We don't know a lot about this character. He never speaks in the movie at all. He is apparently a badass, and he makes it out alive. It's basically what if you're trapped to finance a phrase, but you actually are able to beat up the animatronics. Um, but what we can infer from him is that he probably had some sort of military background or some sort of background as a killer or something like that, because not only is he very skilled hand-to-hand combat, this guy shows no fear going up against possessed animatronics that are trying to kill and eat you. But he stares these things down like it's no issue whatsoever, to the point where there might be something wrong with this man, like a PTSD or something along those lines. And so, yeah, it's very likely this man had some sort of military background and has done some things he probably isn't proud of, and he just goes along his way doing whatever he does, doesn't talk or whatever. And there's, I think, a little bit of a hint towards PTSD near the end fight when he's actually going up against Willy himself, where he kind of gets knocked out and is kind of spacing out a little bit, but overall, the guy's still extremely capable of taking down pretty much every one of these animatronics on his own. Even though he didn't kill the fairy, and he didn't kill, well, he ran over the Lucha Libre, what was he? The Lucha Libre bird? I think that's what he was. Not Lucha Libre, sorry, the mariachi bird, that's what it was. The others, he killed the alligator on his own. He killed Willy on his own. He killed the gorilla on his own. He killed the ostrich on his own. And he killed the kind of knight. I think he was like a Captain Crunchy Knight or something like that. He killed that guy on his own. He killed 5 out of the 7 on his own, and probably could have easily taken down the other 2. Oh, and the chameleon too. I believe he's the one who took out the chameleon. So he took down 6 of these guys on his own. And honestly, even against someone like Willy and the gorilla, who I would argue gave him the biggest trouble, he really didn't struggle that much against them. And once he really, because again, no one ever really fought back against these things before, clearly. So when someone actually does, A, they're not prepared for it, and B, he's clearly capable, so he makes quick work of them. But against the Beldam from Coraline, that's a slightly different endeavor to undertake, because the Beldam is not just a possessed animatronic. The Beldam is a supernatural creature. Now, the one thing I'll say about the Beldam is that despite its arachnid skeletal form it has and its surprising size, it actually doesn't seem to be that physically imposing and scary. I mean, scary, sure, but what I mean is it doesn't seem to have the physical strength to really overpower, say, a grown man, although allegedly it did kidnap Coraline's parents, so debatable. Because of its thin frame, the level of physical strength it has is debatable. And to be fair, Coraline's parents were pretty emotionally dead for a lot of the movie, so there's that as well. Nick Cage would not be letting that just manhandle him if it could. But the Beldam does have other abilities, particularly shape-changing is one of its main abilities. It's also capable of altering, pretty much has complete control over the dimension it lives in. But, yeah, this fight's all going to depend it's going to come down to whether or not this fight takes place in the dimension or the Beldam's able to come out into our real world. Because without its dimension and its near omnipotence it has within its dimension, I think this fight's going to be very much in Nick Cage's favor. And I'm going to call him Nick Cage because he's Nick Cage, and we don't really have a firm name on him. But I think it really is going to be within Nick Cage's favor. And this is due to the fact that outside of her dimension, her powers do seem to be limited. She is capable of commanding fauna or live animals. She is capable of to some degree taking possession of souls and even creation of life, but there's limitations. And her bread and butter in terms of tactics really isn't physical damage, or physical. It's not physical fighting. It's more manipulating your environment, manipulating others. If you're in the alternate world, then you have a problem, because the only way to really beat her outright is A, be more powerful than her with, like, say, magic and things along those lines, which many fictional characters can do, but Nick Cage isn't one of them in this case. Or be outsmart her. And unfortunately, I don't know if this Nick Cage character could outsmart her. That doesn't seem to be up this character's alley in terms of strategy. And I think that's due to the fact that he doesn't talk. We don't know anything about him. We assume he's not an idiot by any stretch of the means. We just don't have enough information. He never talks at all. So we can only assume that if he had the ability to communicate with this thing, he probably wouldn't. He'd probably be the stoic, tough guy that rolls into town. And that would be a problem, because the Beldam within her own dimension can create pocket dimensions to trap people. It's capable of manipulating the weather. It's capable of manipulating her environment to her umpteenth degree. And that's just not something that I think this character of Nick Cage can really do anything against, because he is just a guy. He's a capable guy. And again, within the real world, I actually would give probably him the edge, because he would be more than willing to just break the damn thing's legs, break her neck, whatever he's got to do to beat the hell out of her. He'd be more than willing to do it. But in her world, I don't see it faring as well for him. So this is kind of a split down the middle decision here. I mean, Nick Cage would take it in the real world, I think, with, some difficulty. But she more likely takes it in her world. So I guess the answer to the question then comes down to, based on the percentages, like the majority, within those minorities of her winning in the real world and him winning in the other world, who do I think has the better odds overall? And I would say the chances are that it's, assuming that he's willing to talk, and that's a big if, it's probably going to go more on his side, because just because you can manipulate her environment and control it does not mean he still couldn't beat on her. If she's not careful, he could still beat the living crap out of her, and she couldn't do anything about that. Whereas in the real world, her powers are much more limited, and so I don't see her really being able to do much and still avoid him beating on her. Like, she's going to have to get distance, keep a distance. Like, theoretically, she could create some life, but he's just going to beat the hell out of whatever she creates, more or less. And even if she tries to, for example, she can't really steal his soul, per se. I made mention that she can take souls that she can, but there's certain circumstances for that. I think I'd lean mostly, just barely towards Nick Cage in this scenario. I think his minority is larger than her minority in terms of the wins they can take within their respective losses, I guess, is the best way to put it. When you factor how much they win versus how much they lose, I think it would go towards Nick Cage in this matchup. But this is just my opinion. Let me know what you think. If this fight honestly could go either way, depending on where you put the fight. That's really what it comes down to, is where's the location. But I would go probably Nick Cage for the majority overall. But it's like a 55-56% majority, not a strong majority at all. But what do you think? Anyway, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Happy birthday, Bobby. And I'll see you guys for the next one.